Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Now, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again, whether you're tuning in on the radio dial in Mississippi at WIAD 94.1 FM. We welcome you all back to our show, as well as tuning into our online affiliates around the world. We're glad to have all of you with us as well. As you all know, I love the written word, which is one of the reasons why I started this program 14 years ago, to be able to share the words of individuals I've been able to meet. Our next guest has been able to do something quite amazing. I'm excited to welcome James J. Owens to our program today. He's not only the editor of the book, The World is Just a Book Away, but also a charity by the same name. And it's all about the power of words for either young people, as his charity is able to help, but also, of course, for us adults as well. We'll talk to James not only about the compiling of these stories that he's been able to share in the book, but also the common thread that's there, and that is, of course, the power of the written word in our lives. And I think it really reinforces something we talk about on this show a lot, which no matter what your profession might be, the power that words can have for you and how you can be able to share that with others. If you're just not hearing about the book, we'll tell you at the end of our segment how you can be able to get your own copy of it. But, James, hello to you and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, look, glad to do it. I want to start off with something that you actually say in the book early on, and that is, the pride you have to feel, James, of being able to, for one, to be able to compile these amazing stories, but also even the work you've been able to do with The World is Just a Book Away. I mean, what has it been like for you since the book's been out to kind of reflect on this journey and how you got to where you are today?
I haven't felt like I've had a lot of time to reflect since the book's been out. But I am conscious of taking moments in the different events that are happening, and which is very exciting, and just looking around and looking at people and seeing the book and really being aware that it feels like, I guess the best way to describe it is it feels like a miracle to me because, as you know, Cyrus, I spent 15 years creating this book, and it has people in it ranging from the participants, the 60 participants in the book discuss how books and reading inspired them, and ranges from the Dalai Lama and President Gorbachev to Jane Goodall and Queen Noor of Jordan and Buzz Aldrin and Liam Neeson and all of these amazing people. And to be able to bring this together in one book, to be given the privilege of doing that, I do feel very blessed to have been given the opportunity.
Well, it's an amazing book, and I tell you, as someone who grew up as a self-professed nerd, James, growing up, I used to make people laugh when I used to tell them the story that one of the worst things my mom could tell me is to go to my room, because I was always excited to go to the room and read. Books always have had that influence on my life. What I love about this book that you're able to share, and they even said, especially one of the ones I made a note of with Fess Parker, about the power of words and how, the books had such an influence on him. I mean, is that something that you've always felt as well? I mean, you talk about, of course, your own mother and kind of instilling that, and now how you're able to do it as a father. Is that kind of how it began for you?
Always. I can't remember a time. I don't remember my life without books and my mother reading to me, and then our trips to the library. And it's really the reason the title of the book became The World is Just a Book Away, because I really do feel like books and words, the images and the journeys that children and adults create in our minds from reading books, really do bring the world to us, and that one book can allow us to travel to a different place and a different time in the world, and the power of words has always been absolutely seminal in my life. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And now, of course, you're able to share it not only with this book that's out now, James, as I said, we'll be letting our audience know how they can go to Amazon and get the book, but also through the charity that you have by the same name. I mean, you focus on something that our book club with Conversations tries to do, and that is to be able to share the power of words with young people. Do you find that starting early and being able to encourage them to appreciate the written word is one of the things that's also driven you?
Absolutely. As you said, the charity is also The World is Just a Book Away, or we say WIJABA, for short, WIJABA. And the book led me to the idea to start the charity. My intention was that I would give my profit from the book to the charity and help to gather the energy of the people in this book toward children's literacy, because I was aware of it. I traveled a lot. I've been to more than 50 countries, and I've seen children who have no access to schools and no access to books and the dreams and of course the poverty. But I think what books do and what words do and what literacy itself does is it allows people to break the chain of poverty and better themselves and empower themselves and even affect change in their own communities. And so I really do firmly believe, and I've read a lot of research around this, that children having access to books at an early age is absolutely vital. The word and books is absolutely vital in their development. And I saw all of these children who had no access. And then we started the charity, and then that has, as you know, grown. The World is Just a Book Away. The charity has grown through the years and now has reached about 70,000 children in 3 countries.
And I think that is the amazing thing, the reach, and it all begins with an idea. And this is what I hope our audience gets from this change. I mean, we never know when we set out to do something, the impact and the influence it's going to have. When you first started this journey with The World is Just a Book Away, what was the initial goal?
Well, that's to admit it, it's a little selfish. My initial goal was a little selfish. I was running out of things to read myself, and I thought, wouldn't it be really cool to talk to prominent people about books that inspired them and how reading inspired them? And so when I started The World is Just a Book Away, I thought, well, I'll spend a year or two talking to prominent people and asking them about the books that inspired them and why, and then I'll create this book, but I'll have this great reading list for myself. And then I realized quickly that it would be an amazing reading list for others. What I hadn't realized was that people like, you could take so many of the people in this book, like the architect Frank Gehry or Yo-Yo Ma or Liam Neeson, or so many of them. They receive hundreds or even thousands of requests a month or a year to do worthwhile projects. So it's not as easy to reach them as I initially had thought. And that led to this 15-year process of creating the book. But what I hope now, through the process, it's really twofold. That the book itself will promote literacy and inspire people to read books that they hadn't thought of before, that they'll read a chapter in The World is Just a Book Away, and they might consider reading a book by Emerson, or Senator Kennedy talks about Profiles in Courage, and which his brother, President Kennedy, wrote, and how important and impactful that was. So that my hope is that the readers of The World is Just a Book Away will discover books that they hadn't considered before. And then, of course, the second intention for the book is that it will promote the charity and our work for children's literacy around the world.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about the charity and how our audience can be involved. James, I want to say for those who are just tuning in, though, either on the radio side or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. We're excited to welcome James J. Owens to our program today. He's the editor of the new book, The World is Just a Book Away. We're talking with him not only about the over a decade that he spent compiling these different profiles, but also what he hopes it's able to do for all of you, and also the work he's doing through his charity. Another one that stood out to me was Queen Noor of Jordan. James, and there was something that she said when talking about one book that impacted her, which was What's Right with Islam. She said this, and I think this is a great reminder for all of us. I have observed on countless occasions how hope and a sense of purpose propagate even in the harshest climate of war, poverty, catastrophe, and prejudice. No matter how dire the circumstances, there are always individuals looking to a better tomorrow and ready to work for it. And no matter how unsure they are about how to realize their dreams, they are willing to face whatever challenges that may lie ahead. When people read something like that, do you hope it also helps them, and no matter whatever their own goal or aspiration might be in life, James, to realize that it's worth fighting for and doing the work for?
Absolutely, and Queen Noor was very generous and came in. If you see, each is signed and dated, and Queen Noor came early in the process in 2004. And she, as you said, she discusses the book What's Right with Islam. And for Queen Noor, who was born in America, she views it, and she mentions this in her submission, as one of her main goals as being a bridge between the East and the West, between East and West. And I think definitely it helps people to understand the power of words, and that it's very important to read outside of our, and this is something that came to me through creating this book. It's very important to read outside of our norm, what we're used to reading, to allow ourselves to expose ourselves to new ideas, or to revisit, Yo-Yo Ma talks about the importance that The Little Prince had in his life, and I've gone back and read The Little Prince again, and his wonderful, fanciful journey through the universe, to look at the world through different books and different ideas and expose ourselves to that, I think, is extremely important.
Yeah. One that surprised me, and I think our audience, and I'm going to have to tease this on social media, James, because this is a story I had never heard before, how Jane Fonda was affected by the transformation of Malcolm X as recorded in his autobiography. I mean, what was that like for you to read about?
Isn't that powerful? And in fact, I also had the opportunity to talk to Ms. Fonda about it and to read it. When you read her submission, she was living in France at the time. She was married to a Frenchman, and she was I believe she was floating in a raft in the Mediterranean off of Saint-Tropez, which is very a very jet-setty kind of place, and reading the biography of Malcolm X and realizing that something really deep and powerful was going on in the world, and that the impact that book had on her, on Jane Fonda, to decide to come back to America and become more involved to try to make a difference in the way that she could. And that's, I think you cite, Cyrus, a beautiful example. Within the World is Just a Book Away, of someone discussing a book that really affected the course of their lives. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think the other thing for me, James, from this, and I think our audience will appreciate, is that it really shows you, we've all heard this saying, you can't judge a book by its cover. There's so many people who would not expect, someone like Jane Fonda to even pick up the autobiography of Malcolm X, just because of the perception of him. But it really shows that you never really know how a book might impact you, how anything might impact you, unless you have taken that leap. Do you see this entire project, James, as a leap of faith in a way?
Well, you could. That's a kind way of putting it, or delusional maybe. Absolutely. I have always been a dreamer, and my dreams were fostered from when I was a child through books. And I didn't travel. I grew up in a small town, in a beautiful, beautiful small town in Massachusetts. But I never got on a plane until I was 14, and I think I went to Europe the first time I was 16. And I think what was always very clear to me and very clear with my mother, and I describe my mother whom I lost when I was 9. We looking at a book with a picture of the pyramids, and we discussed how we would go to Egypt and climb the pyramids and ride a camel, and of course my mother wasn't able to do that, but that planted the seed in me, and I did do it, and I did go to Egypt. I climbed the pyramid, and a Bedouin on a camel appeared at the base of the pyramid when I was at the top, and that was another real seminal moment in my life of the power of words and imagery, because it was literally like the picture from the front of the book had come to life. And I think that, so I always, even when I was a small boy in Great Barrington in our little apartment, I believed, I really did believe that I could go to Egypt one day and that I could ride a camel. I'd never seen a camel, let alone been to Egypt. And so when I started this book, The World Is Just a Book Away, I believed that I would be able to compile this book of prominent people to come together and discuss how books and reading inspired them. And gradually, step by step, you mentioned Queen Noor, and when Queen Noor came in, I felt a shift, and when Senator Kennedy and Archbishop Desmond Tutu and then toward the very end, the Dalai Lama and President Gorbachev came in. And so it was a leap of faith. It did require a lot of work, a lot of networking and persistence. And you mentioned there were times, I never wanted to give up, but there were times it just felt like it was impossible I never really wanted to give up, but at times it felt impossible. And I think you have to have deep faith when you have a dream, whatever anyone's dream is. We have to have faith that we can make it happen, and we have to persist. And so I had deep faith, and I persisted, and it took 15 years, but here it is. Here it is in physical form.
And it's still something that is so timeless. The last one that I wanted to mention, James, was Eunice Kennedy Shriver, and how she was impacted by Mother Teresa's book, A Simple Path. She talked about when creating the Special Olympics, what the goal was, but also, of course, remembering and reminding us all, I think, of the disability group that's here in the United States and around the world. And I love the way that she says this: they have done nothing wrong, committed no crime, and perpetrated no injustice. They are the world's most innocent victims, and they have suffered all this only because they are different. Someone else thinks they don't matter. Someone else thinks they can't participate in our community life. Someone else thinks they should be pushed aside. We do not believe they should be pushed aside. And she ends it by saying this, and I think it's a great reminder for all of our audience here. There is still more work to be done, whether you are a coach, a mother, or a young student, or the President of the United States. The call to action is the same. Put your love into action. Is that also one of those messages that kind of rings with you, that when it comes to whether it's starting a charity like The World Is Just a Book Away, or working in the community, or volunteering, or seeing how you can be of service, is that kind of what you hope we all are able to realize about not only, of course, sharing, but also being an impact in someone's life?
It is. When you mentioned Mrs. Shriver, and I had never met Maria Shriver. I just met her a couple weeks ago, and told her that her mother was in the book, and we were talking about Mother Teresa and the role she played in Mrs. Shriver's life, Mrs. Kennedy Shriver's life. And when you read her submission, she talks about how she started the Special Olympics really with Camp Shriver in her backyard. And now look at Special Olympics, serving with millions of wonderful people participating around the world. And I think one thing I realized in doing this, and I've realized it over the years, but I think I used to have a perception that you work and you succeed, and then you do something philanthropic or help others. And through my life, and especially through the book, I've come to realize that's not really how it works. What really matters is that, and Jane Goodall, who writes the foreword of the book, as you know, and we're very involved with her with the charity as well in promoting her work. Her view also is that each of us, if we do what we can from where we stand today, and that might be helping someone carry their groceries, or it might be helping children in some way, or any act of kindness, anything we can do from where we stand today, that's really what makes the world a better place, that each of us does what we can from where we stand today.
Right. I think that's it. It's a great thing, again, for all of us to keep in mind. Again, everyone, James J. Owens has been our guest. Great conversations with you, James. The book is called The World is Just a Book Away. It's the same name as his charity that he has as well. He's about to give you all that website. But the book's available through our friends at Amazon.com. You all can get it there. Or, of course, if you visit your local bookstore, if they don't have it, they'll be more than glad to order it for you. And, James, we talked about the charity. Let our audience know how they can find out more information about it and how they can be a part of it.
The World is Just a Book Away. You can Google it, and it will come up, or WIJABA.org, WIJABA.org. And this is linked, Cyrus, to your last point, that something that's highlighted to me in doing this process is this is a book about books that inspired prominent people, published by USC Libraries Press to buy books and build libraries for children. So a wonderful circle. And people, if they are able to give even as little as $2 buys a book for a child in Indonesia that has none or has never had access to one, and $15,000 can build an entire library for a school in Mexico. So whether someone's ability is to give $2 or to give $15,000 or any amount in between, it really makes an enormous difference on providing children who have access to very little hope and certainly no access to books and a safe place to study and educational programs. It provides them with that access, and they can read more. Your listeners could read more, and we of course are grateful for every donation that allows us to help the children at www.wijaba.org, or The World is Just a Book Away.
All right. So make sure you are definitely staying connected with the charity. We'll be posting the link in the liner notes for this conversation. James, again, congratulations to you, and thank you so much for the time. And it goes without saying, you're welcome back here anytime.
Thank you, Cyrus, and thank you so much, and thank you to your listeners.
We appreciate you. And we appreciate your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. If you all came in late, you missed part of the conversation with James, don't worry. Thanks to our online friends, you all can catch the replay right after we go off the air. The link is already available through our social media sites, so head over to Facebook.com/Cyrus Webb or go to Twitter.com/Cyrus Webb. If you click on the link there, you can listen to the show completely for free and share it with your friends from there, too. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Make sure you take out time to enjoy some good music as well as a great book. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live today. You all make it a great one.